one of the most important topics that you don't know about, but you should when it comes to getting money for your business. And it's LexisNexis. Listen, I found some really crazy things about LexisNexis when we were trying to get financing for our company that adversely affected our ability to be able to get that money. Then, as we dove in deeper, what we found was this is the root of where most of the problems you could be experiencing with getting credit and financing come from. So, if you're looking to get the most money, the best terms for your business, you've got to know about LexisNexis. This is going to be one of the most revealing trainings I've ever done because, again, we're going to look at what your report, if it's anything like mine, about 300-page deep, looks like. What's on this report, who has access to it, and you're going to be shocked about the kind of stuff that's out there about you and who has it and what they're doing with the information. So today we're talking about how LexisNexis impacts your life and your business credit reports as well. So look, if you've ever been denied before for financing, it could be your business credit, it could be your personal credit, but international data reporting LexisNexis and their records probably tie in. So let me just give you a really quick example. If you've ever went through and disputed something on your consumer credit reports that used to be a public record, a judgment, a tax return, a bankruptcy, and the credit bureaus ever came back and said it's verified. Just to give you an idea of how deep this well goes, they're verifying it with LexisNexis. LexisNexis is where all that public record data comes from. Now, I'm going to continue to go on through today's training and give you a lot more examples. But again, this has so much information on it, including the history, the entire history of all judgments you've ever had. Any public record, even when it's not on your consumer credit report, believe it or not, is still accessible by lenders and credit issuers through LexisNexis. Again, just scratching the surface, but just wanted to give you a preliminary idea of how deep this well goes. Now, again, when we talk about LexisNexis and we talk about your personal information, well, most people don't really have any idea how much information is really out there. Okay, we don't think about it unless like there's been a data breach. And the sheer volume of data is actually outstanding. I mean, like I said, the typical report with LexisNexis looks about 300 pages deep, including a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today, including every address you've ever had, every phone number you've ever had, every business you've ever been affiliated with. And that's why you're looking at a report like this that's 300 pages versus a typical consumer credit report, which again may only be a fraction of that. So if you're just coming in, tell me hello, tell me where you're coming in from. I always like to hear it. And by the way, today I'm interested to see what industries are in the house. So give me a shout out. Tell me what industry you're actually in now. Blair says, hey, Ty, thanks for coming in and visiting us, Blair. Thanks for giving me a shout out and saying hello. So give me a shout out, say hello, and tell me what industry you're in. I always like to know who's coming in and who's enjoying the training today. Okay. So look, the data's online from even before the internet existed, right? All of it's fair game for lenders or credit issuers. And that's the thing, is all this information about us that we don't realize is out there. Then there's these third-party data aggregators that pull all that data together and populate it on these reports. What's different about LexisNexis is that we don't typically get this report. We don't get it through credit monitoring. Most who are watching today have probably never even seen their LexisNexis credit report. And that's what's one of the most crazy things I've seen in the decades that I've been working with financial services and the decade that I've been pulling back the curtain to see how lenders and credit issuers work. Probably the most shocking thing that I've discovered is that this secret credit report right here that lenders, credit issuers, law enforcement, insurance companies are using, we don't even know about. Most people don't even know about it. They've never even seen it. And as a result of that, these lenders and credit issuers have all this data and are making all these decisions about denying us for financing, granting us less favorable terms based on the data that a lot of us have never even seen before. So what does LexisNexis do? Well, instead of providing data to consumers that's front-facing, they basically are the ones behind the scene gathering it and giving it to people like lenders and credit issuers. So we're out here going, show me my TransUnion credit report, my Equifax, Experian, aha, I'm going to clean this up, ha, ha, ha. Lenders and credit issuers will never know this and never do that. But what we don't realize is that they're not looking at that stuff. What they are looking at consumer credit, but they're digging at a way deeper and playing at a whole different level than we are as consumers and entrepreneurs by getting LexisNexis data, which is a cumulative of what's on consumer credit reports amongst a lot of other information as well, including the lifetime history of public records, amongst many other things. So again, they're the ones that are getting the data and providing it to insurance companies, the government, financial services, debt collection, law enforcement, public safety, healthcare, amongst lenders, credit issuers, suppliers can all get this data. Okay, and it's not hard to get. We software companies, there's a lot of people that actually have access to the raw data that LexisNexis actually provides. Now, LexisNexis also partners with the Small Business Finance Exchange, or the SBFE. And then what they do is they take information that you is shared openly about how you handle your banking, and that information is also on LexisNexis credit reports as well. So they're actually a member of SBFE, and the only people that have access to this data are members of SBFE. And again, and also what they call vendors. So LexisNexis is actually a vendor, and so is DNB Equifax Experian. And so if you don't know what SBFE is, again, let me give you an even more of a shock and reveal here, because this is a third-party data aggregator that's owned by their members. Their members are banks. Almost excluding one, every one of the largest banks in this country that offers loans and credit cards is a member of the SBFE. And the way that it works is they openly share information. So let me give you an example. Let's say you apply for a Wells Fargo business loan. Well, what most people don't realize is when you do that, that information goes into SBFE. And then also, even though it's through Wells Fargo, Bank of America sees it, Chase sees it. So what happens is all these banks ultimately are coming in, and these banks are actually openly sharing information through the SBFE. So how you perform on loans, how you perform on credit cards, what you're putting on your application data, all that's openly shared between banks through the SBFE. And then the vendors, the credit reporting agencies and LexisNexis also gather that data. And part of that data is what you might see on business credit reports, and a large part of that data is gathered in reports. Although, again, a lot of you maybe have not even seen your LexisNexis credit reports. And I got Alabama in the house, Cincinnati is in the house. What's up from Lufkin, Texas? Thanks for coming in. Use Carlot. That's awesome. Hello from Arizona. I'm getting back into the credit industry. Welcome back. We appreciate it. And Teresa says, hey, Ty, I'm in the tax and accounting industry. Blair is from transportation industry, clothing brand, and marketing. And Mary's in real estate investing. So again, I'm going to give a lot more shout outs as we go, but thanks for coming in. Tell me where you're coming in from. And again, if you don't mind, give me a shout out on the industry that you're in. I always like to say hello. So where do they get their data? Well, a lot of places. Federal courts, they get it from state courts, local tax and property records, insurance policies. They link your data from all of these different sources, and they basically complete financial and legal picture of you. So they get it all from different kind of not only courthouses, public record data, tax data, insurance policies, as well as many, many, many other sources that they're actually being able to gather it all from. And then they ultimately do a lot of things like, have the predictability of how you'll pay back loans and financing. They check data like your bankruptcy records, your complete address records, your entire life, every email address you've ever owned. It's really interesting. When I got my LexisNexis credit report, some of the things on the address section that were surprising to me was that all my addresses my entire life were there, including when I was in basic training. Like when I was in the military and I was in tech school and I was in basic training, every single address I've ever held is on here. Every phone number I've ever had, every email address that I've ever had in my entire life is all in my LexisNexis credit report. Now, what also is interesting about this is that it's also at the lifetime history of your public records. So you think that TransUnion Equifax Experian remove public records after 10 years, which they do. Bankruptcies, judgments, those type of things are not on your credit report after 10 years. But in the business world or on LexisNexis, they're there indefinitely. So what you might not realize is that if you've ever had a judgment before, if you've ever had a bankruptcy before, if you've ever had tax liens before, all of that stuff from information is on your LexisNexis credit report for the rest of your life. And lenders, credit issuers, law enforcement, insurance companies, the government, they can all access that exact data. So how does this affect you? I'll give you a real example. So in our world, we got approved for an SBA loan, and the lender came in and said that they needed to collateralize my personal home. Now, that's really interesting because we have a lot of account receivables that were well more value wise than what we were borrowing. And SBA's requirement is you need to have more money you're pledging as collateral than what you're borrowing, about the same. So we had way more in collateral than what we were borrowing. So it didn't make sense they were collateralizing my home. So when we dove in and asked them why, they said because of judgments on my LexisNexis credit report. So I got my LexisNexis credit report, and what I found on there were judgments that were not true, was not accurate. They weren't even mine. So then I had to go down to the courthouse and I had to prove that there weren't even judgments out there in my name. And I got all these records and I went to the bank and proved it, and they removed that stipulation. Think about that. As a business owner, the difference between me having to front my home as collateral for the loan or not contribute and put any personal collateral up was the difference on one thing on my LexisNexis credit report that wasn't even true. So if you haven't gotten this credit report, I'm going to talk to you today about how to do it. It makes you wonder how much stuff you've been denied for, how many insurance policies you haven't gotten, how high your insurance premiums are that you're paying on car, on life, on auto, everything to do with the business. When you're trying to get loans and credit cards and you're denied and you don't know why, in large part it's because of this data. So for example, for the longest time, we had a hard time getting merchant accounts and bank accounts because lenders said I was in the consumer credit repair industry. There's nothing even available online that says that. But when we got the LexisNexis credit report back when I owned a consumer credit repair company, the email addresses and those details were in my LexisNexis report. And when I removed that information, I never had those problems again. The same thing with judgments. When I went and disputed with LexisNexis, they removed all the judgments from my report. I didn't have any problems getting financing again. As a matter of fact, the most recent SBA loan that we just got was for even more than that original, and we were in and out in 3 weeks with the money in our bank account. So if you want fast, easy money at the best terms, this really is where the biggest hiccup that we found that lenders face is. And this is something you're really going to want to overcome because it's really the key to being able to come in and be successful. And we've got big stanky 3X freight transport is in the house. Wellness since hey from business consulting. Mary Redford's in the house from Ocala. Virginia Beach is in the house. We've got Maryland in the house as well. We've got Philly in here. Hello, thanks for coming in. Curtis from Chicago is in here. We got somebody in the insurance industry as well. And is this personal or business information? Great question. And the answer is both. LexisNexis has both your personal and business information. And let me show you why it ties in and creates an issue. LexisNexis, when you apply for a loan and the lender verifies your information, your business name, your business address, your EIN, all of that data, LexisNexis has that data as well. The lender's cross-checking what you're saying against the LexisNexis data they're gathering. And if the data is incongruent, it's one of the first ways that they trigger potential fraud concerns and deny the majority of applications. What I'm saying is that more than half of applications for loans are denied, not because you don't qualify. They're denied because lenders are tapping into data from like LexisNexis, and the business data in this report does not match what they have on their application that you're supplying them. They think it's fraud and they deny the loan. And this happens more than half of the time. More than half of all loans denied are denied for that exact reason. It's why exactly you have to know this. And we've got brilliant Davis is in the house. I love BV from Arizona is in here as well. Thanks for coming in. Tell me what industry you're coming in from, everybody. And give me a shout out. Tell me where you actually are in the United States as well. So LexisNexis matches what you put on any business finance application for fraud detection and prevention, right? So lenders assume it's fraud if the data doesn't match. So think about this. This is the biggest contributor to denials we've ever seen. And we've helped 50,000 people through the process of building business credit. 50,000. Okay. And if you look at all the approvals they've got, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of approvals we've been responsible for helping generate. And the biggest reason that people get denied is because of what's on this credit report that most have never seen. And by the way, if you don't mind, tell me in the chat, have you seen your LexisNexis credit report? Give me a yes or no. If you've ever accessed your LexisNexis credit report before, I'd like to know, yes or no, have you gotten it? And if you have, Do you remember how many pages were in it? Mine's over 300. I'm curious to yours to see actually how many pages are in your credit report as well. So LexisNexis uses what's called Lex ID. It's a unique identifier that connects all the data about you, like marriage and divorce records, pilot records, firearms licenses. No matter where you go, LexisNexis knows because of this Lex ID. So every time you're married, you get divorced, every record license that you've ever had issued or revoked. So when you look at mine, I'm a pilot. So my pilot's license on here. I was a mortgage broker. My mortgage broker license is on here. If you have a firearms license, any license you've ever been issued, including driver's licenses or revoked, all of that information is on this report as well. Now, don't forget, this is publicly available at lenders, credit issuers, suppliers. You don't even have to be anything other than anybody that wants to get the data from LexisNexis to be able to gather it. And all of that information is readily available to anybody out there that wants to get it, especially lenders, credit issuers, and those making all these kind of decisions about you. As I mentioned, every address you've had your whole life, every phone number you've had, and it doesn't just have every address you've ever lived in. This is how crazy deep this data is. It tells me the homeowner association. It tells me where I closed the loan, the title company. It says the interest rates that I actually paid on the mortgages. It gives the details of my home, including square footage, including how it was constructed, whether it be block home or what the actual construction materials used, the AC units, how many stories it is, how many car garage you have of every property you've ever had. Just to give you an idea, an inkling of how much data is in this thing. Think about that. Every single home you've owned, the homeowners association, the title company that actually closed the loan, the interest rate that you actually paid, the loan terms that you actually got, well as the building materials of your home, the air conditioning units, the square footage, the garage, all of it is in there to show you how extensive it is. Every time you've ever been convicted of anything, misdemeanor, felony, every speeding ticket you've ever had is in here as well. Now, admittingly, I have a lead foot, I'm a fast driver, and I oftentimes joke that 200 of these 300 pages are just my speeding tickets. Might be somewhat accurate there, but every time you've ever had a ticket, it's in here as well. Why is this a problem? I'll give you a real world example. When we applied for SBA, they ask a common question. They say, have you ever been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor? And of course, I said no, because I'm a pretty straight back. The lender did and said, actually, you lied. You've been convicted of multiple misdemeanors. Now you have to explain why you lied and what happened in these instances. I don't remember ever being convicted of anything. So I actually literally had to pull a background check on myself. Have you ever had to do that? Have you ever had to pull a background check by yourself because lenders have data that you don't even know what they're talking about? That's me. And that's what happens when they're tapping into LexisNexis. And what ultimately happened was back when I was 19 or 20 years old, there was like a female police officer and I was like trying to impress her and I had a motorcycle and I was popping wheelies and I got in all kinds of trouble for that, right? And it was funny at the time, but now 20 plus years later, it's affecting my ability to get an SBA loan. And so then I had to explain, hey, I did have this stuff and this is what happened. I've obviously never had issues over the last 20 something years plus, and I didn't know about it. I even had to pull a background check. I completely forgot. I had to go through this long explanation to even explain and be able to get the loan. So the reason I tell you this is think about it. Think about all the work that was involved. I had to go to the courthouse and prove that judgments that were mine weren't even mine. I had to come in and go through a background check and write up. This delayed our loan by over a month. So when you want to get money, it's the difference between getting an SBA loan that takes 3 to 6 months to close or getting an SBA loan that takes 3 weeks to close. It's really the difference of knowing what's on this report, cleaning it up, and once it's cleaned up, being able to fly through the approval process versus running into all of these barriers. And I'm going back and checking what everybody's saying here about whether or not and I got somebody here in the insurance industry as well. No, tell us to get what ASAP. Okay, so how you get a LexisNexis credit report. I will dive into that here in just a minute. Yes, very long. If somebody did get their report, yes, I ordered mine about 2 months ago. About 150 pages, Curtis says. A lot of no's in here. Is this legal for a third party to aggregate this much data on an individual? How do you do a background check? I love this. Okay, so first of all, that's what I said. I can tell you when I showed my wife at the time this information, I said, I need you to see something. And I said, I showed her the report and I said, please look through this. And when she looked through it, she looked at me and says, this is the most intrusive thing I've ever seen in my life, which, by the way, I feel the same way. It is literally the most intrusive thing in your life. What your marriage record, your divorce record, your kids' information, it's all there. It's so scary that all of this is aggregated in one place to begin with, let alone how many different people and parties have access to it. And yes, it is 100% legal. As a matter of fact, LexisNexis is the biggest in this space, but there's a lot of third-party data aggregators that aggregate data and populate it into these kind of reports and sell it to anybody that will buy it. Okay, so yeah, it's 100% legal, as scary as that is. And Steve says, how do I get a background check? Just simply go online and type in background check. There's about 1 million companies that offer them. Find the one that looks to be the best. Usually you can put in some preliminary information about yourself. It will then pull up like a sample of, is this you, and give you some basic info, and you can move forward and buy it. You can even pay a certain amount monthly and be able to get background checks on multiple different people's. So criminal records as well. We talked about that. Bankruptcy records. Again, every public record you've ever had, whether you have a judgment, whether you have liens, whether you have bankruptcies, everything that's ever been on the public record section of a credit report, that's there for the lifetime. So it's not just there for a limited time. If you had a bankruptcy 40 years ago, it shows on your LexisNexis credit report. If you had a tax lien that you paid off 30 years ago, it shows on your LexisNexis credit report. Now, you're probably going and applying for a loan and going, they don't know that that happened 12 years ago. They know. They know because it's here. And you got to get it and clean it up. And we're going to talk about that today as well. But again, it is here, the lifetime of every public record. If you've ever tried to dispute a public record with the consumer credit reporting agencies and they said it's verified, this is where they verify it. So people say that to me all the time. I've heard, I can't tell you how many times. How do I get a judgment off my credit report? How do I get a bankruptcy? I'm trying to, and they verify it. And I always ask, have you went to LexisNexis and disputed it there first? And they say, no, what's LexisNexis? I'm like, that's a whole other conversation. But that is the answer to your question. You dispute with LexisNexis, remove it there, then go to the bureau, and then you'll get it removed because that's who they're verifying it through. Okay, military records. Military, if you were in the military, how were you discharged? How were you discharged? Under what conditions were you discharged? Where did you serve? All of that information is here. The data is often not accessible on credit reports. You're not going to find that kind of stuff. And this is one of the reasons that it makes LexisNexis so unique. Now, your report affects your ability to buy and get insurance. By the way, speaking of insurance and vehicles, you want to talk about some more shocking stuff. Every car you've ever owned is in here. The VIN number itself for every vehicle you've ever owned is in here as well. The insurance policies that you've had too, every single insurance policy you've ever had in your life, it's all listed in here as well. So not only is every vehicle and the VIN number for every vehicle, but every insurance policy you've ever had here as well. And again, it affects your ability to get insurance, to get lines of credit, to get other things. So let me give you an example. I got a watch, my dream watch. I went to insure it. The company denied me insurance. I said, this is absurd. I don't even know if I've ever filed an insurance claim in my life. How could this be? And I called them and said, why? And they said, I don't know. And I said, well, let me speak to an underwriter. And they said, you can't talk to an underwriter. I said, well, then I need to talk to somebody who can answer this question. And I ramble on and my lenders speak. And they said, let me let you talk to an underwriter. I'm like, yeah, that's what I said. So they get me with an underwriter, and the underwriter goes, well, I'll tell you right now what it is. It's your LexisNexis jewelry score. I'm like, I didn't even know there was a LexisNexis jewelry insurance score. There is. And they didn't like it because of like a couple crazy things. So then I went to LexisNexis, cleared that off by disputing it, and had no problem getting the insurance policy. So if you've been denied for life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, any insurance policy, if you paid higher premiums, if you're paying higher premiums, you don't know why. A large part, it's because of data that's on this credit report as well. Insurance companies are a big user of this to make all kinds of decisions beyond lenders and credit issuers as well. So some things to think about. Can you freeze these reports? LexisNexis, you can't freeze the report. You can fix it. I'll talk about that today. Can you pull LexisNexis on anyone without their permission? You can't pull a LexisNexis on somebody else. You could try, but they're not giving it to usually people. It's companies that have contracts with them that they give it to. So, for example, at Credit Suite, we For example, a lot of companies, if you want to get this data to make all kinds of decisions, you absolutely can. For us, we're actually about ready to roll out 4 months our utmost updated product fundability. And when our product rolls out, our product actually goes in and gets this data that lenders are getting. It pulls it forward. It's the only way that it's ever been pulled forward and not accessed by all the people behind the scenes. Then it compares your current data to what's there, and it gives you a fundability score. It'll actually even tell you, hey, like your application data doesn't match what lenders are going to see in these sources. You got to fix this stuff. And it ties into the name, the address, the phone number, the entity type, the industry, the NEICS, your industry type, all of that. And it tells you the discrepancies so you can actually fix that. But in order to do that kind of stuff, you have to have business agreements with these companies to access the reports. So as a consumer, you're not able to do it. You can try, but again, if the address that you're trying to get it sent to isn't an address they have on file, I doubt that you're going to be able to pull that off. And you'd have to say that it was you getting it and commit fraud. And there's all kinds of problems there as well. Okay. I guess they also put when you die, hopefully that's the last thing that would be on a LexisNexis credit report. Yeah, I don't know. I think they do have your birth and all your birth information on there. And probably your death information too. I've never looked at somebody that's deceased, but it's a good point. I love that you said that, Stevie. It's funny. And Makisha says, hey, wow, I was told you could freeze it, so that's not accessible. And then V. Johnson says, how can we overcome the obstacles to obtaining business credit, especially with LexisNexis reporting? Well, again, the key we found with business credit building is you've got to know and access all of these reports. Check systems is important on how you handle your banking history. LexisNexis is obviously the most important. D&B, Equifax, Experian, you got to get these reports, monitor them, and clean them up. I've talked to you multiple times today, and I'll teach you how to do this, but I've talked to you multiple times today about me cleaning this up. I went through and removed email addresses showing I was in consumer credit repair, never had bank account or merchant account issues before. I cleared off every public record, and all of a sudden I started to get obstacles cleared up, like had insurance issues and loan approval issues. No more personal collateral was needed. I went in and cleaned up a couple things that they didn't like that affected my jewelry score, raised my jewelry score, and went from getting no insurance to a really good a really good policy on my jewelry. So again, you can do it. It's just the key is you've got to keep an eye on this. You got to be able to get the reports, and then you have to clean them up. So LexisNexis data can affect your business even if you're able to hold business credit to get loans, because again, this is personal credit and it has a lot of your business data on there as well, which is very important. And this is information beyond how you pay your bills. They call it single view of customer, and it goes into aspects of your life. Well, what kind of home do you have? Whether you have worked during your life, every job you've ever had in your entire life is listed on there. Whether you have licenses for everything, we talked about this as well, to own a gun, to fly a plane, to do mortgages, any of that as well. Public safety officers use this information to solve crimes faster. Analysts predict and are thereby used to prevent future crime. This data has been used to locate witnesses, find kidnapped children. They've got your criminal records, traffic tickets. They've got your family lineage on there. So every alias you've ever had in your life, the people that are your family members of record are on there as well. So now you realize this is how these bounty hunters track people down. And we're like, oh my gosh, how did they do that? Well, because your average person doesn't go out into the middle of the woods to disappear. And by the way, if they did, they'd probably have a history of going and camping. And this thing would show that kind of stuff as well, including every contract, loan, credit you've been issued. All that stuff is here. But you got to think about it. Most people are going to go to somewhere safe, right? Well, if you go to your mom, your dad, your sisters, or your friend, all that information's here. All of their information is that they're linked to you is here. Every address you've ever had. So they're very good at being able to hunt you down and find you because all of this information is here. Think about it. Is it really hard to find you if I know the kind of car you have, the VIN number of the car, the insurance policy of the car, where you live, every family member or person that you're associated with, every address you've ever had in your life? I can figure out for the most part where you are because you're probably going to go to a safe haven. You're probably not going to go somewhere to start over a whole new life unless you had substantial capital to do so. This is why we see bounty hunters and all these people so successful at hunting you down because of that data. So anyone who gets your LexisNexis credit report can see that. And LexisNexis suggests cities can share crime data and alerts with the public to promote community policing, cooperation, involvement. All of this can affect lending decisions. So they're gathering all this data and they're supplying it to law enforcement. They're supplying it to public safety officers as well for all different kind of purposes. But again, what's scary is that all of that data is available to anybody that actually gets the report. So lenders also use it to make all kinds of lending decisions, okay, as well as they check your loan application matches against the LexisNexis ID. Again, they plug into SPFE so they can automatically access all of your bank information, including any loan you've applied for, credit card you've applied for, what happened with those approvals or denials, how did you pay on those bills, all the information on the application, all of that information they're plugged into because they're plugged into SPFE. And you can't hide from the repo man collection companies because, again, this is how they're getting all the information to know how to contact you, because all those linkages of who is your family, where you've lived, it's all there as well. Governments use it to find taxpayers, to minimize tax fraud, to maximize tax collections, to prevent fraud and reduce identity-based risk in government assistance programs. So unfavorable data can actually prevent your business from getting local and federal grants as well. So, like, not only does it affect your ability to get loans and credit cards, but it also even affects your ability to be able to get loans or to be able to get grants as well. And V. Johnson says, as a Credit Suite partner, will this information be in the system as updated? Yes. As a matter of fact, we're working on a transition plan now to make sure our partners have access to the updated fundability system when it rolls out. And again, if you're a partner now, congratulations, because as you might imagine, with the significant leap forward in technology of the new fundability system, prices will be going up in our systems, even somewhat significantly as we get into next year. So if you're a partner, you avoid that, but still get the benefit of being able to access fundability. The fundability system is actually going to have a matching system where we get input all the data of loans, credit cards, credit lines, and then we take your data from the business credit reporting agencies, pull it into the system. Then we use that data to actually match you with all the loans, credit lines, vendor accounts you can apply for. And so this lending match or this funding match will actually match you with all the sources after we get you through a high enough fundability score, which we're pulling from these kind of sources to make sure happens. So beyond that, again, government's using this as well to be able to make all kinds of decisions about you. Now, your records are in LexisNexis, whether you provide permission or not. These are public records. And somebody asked about freezing the data. You can freeze consumer credit reports, but this is publicly accessible information. So it's not information that you're really able to freeze. But if you want to opt out, here's exactly what you can do. If you're a victim of identity theft, you must provide the police report to them. If you're a law enforcement official or public official, you must provide a letter from your supervisor stating your position exposes you to a threat of death or seriously bodily harm. If you are at risk of physical harm but are in law enforcement, you can submit a copy of a court protective order, police report, or similar documentation, like a letter from a shelter administrator or a healthcare professional as well, to actually opt out. So what you just see is that, yeah, you can opt out, but you have to be in a really unique situation that is verifiable with some pretty significant stuff to show that you would be at significant harm if that information ever become publicly available. Now, for a price, your business can get information from them. Sales leads often have incomplete contact information, incorrect phone numbers, addresses, alias. So as a result, it's harder to convert customers, but all that information is available on a LexisNexis credit report. So congratulations. You can gather a lot of this data just to market to other people or to market to the people by knowing all their information. Maybe they only gave you their first name. Well, now you have a lot more information than their first name to be able to actually sell them whatever it is you're selling them. Now, complete contact information helps you to decrease time spent on the phone, determine which sales leads are worth it, but you get the idea. This is something that you could use to be able to contact other business owners or get more data on them. And it's also stuff that marketing companies can do about you as well. Now, they do have account monitoring of addresses, phone numbers, bankruptcy filings, deceased notifications. Somebody just said that. There we go. We have confirmation that they do report when you're dead, and property data as well. So you can even get monitoring of some limited data there. And on a business, you can get data on people connected to it, relationships between the business and entity, such as trust, franchise data, industry classification as well. Again, our new fundability system will pulls all this kind of data in and then tells you what's wrong so you can actually fix it, become more appealing to lenders and credit issuers, because we find this is the number one reason business owners are getting denied as well. And information that's on a report, or Banco reports, Banco's a LexisNexis product all about bankruptcy data. So it's a way to monitor bankruptcy cases. It basically covers like certain legal specifics about you, even if you have no bankruptcy cases on file anywhere. So it includes open dates, court close dates, the court information as well. And this is also used by attorneys, amongst many others. Some of that data comes from the government's own PACER system, amongst other sources as well. Now, that report includes bankruptcies, judgments, tax liens, evictions, criminal records, sex offender records, all of which is on a typical LexisNexis credit report. And you can also get a professional licenses report, name of any license you've ever had, the board that licensed you, the number of years you've been participating in the license, violations of the license, revoking of the license. So that's a separate report LexisNexis sells. They also have business association records that name of any business where you're an officer, your title, the data source. So any business you've ever been linked to, that can be purchased separately in a report from LexisNexis as well. And let's talk about supplementing all that data going to a lender. Okay, so if you want to know if your business is lendable merits, and not based on where you went to college 2 decades ago, which it does have, by the way, every school you've ever went to, did you graduate, did you get a degree, all that information is in LexisNexis as well. Then again, the key is that you want to make sure you have access to this data, because you've got to build your business credit. You've got to clean this up as well. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to run into a lot of issues when it comes to getting money. So how do we get this? How do we correct it? Well, if you find an error, first you got to get it. So all you have to do to get a copy of LexisNexis is I could just come right to Google, and I'm going to type in free LexisNexis, and you can see it pulls it up right here. Now, it used to be that I had to actually download a form and fill it out. Now I can come right here, and you can just see I went to free LexisNexis, order your report online, LexisNexis Risk Solution, order form. Here is the information. You can enter all of this right here, submit the request, and typically it comes in about a month's time. With COVID, things are a little bit slower. Now, if you have information is on there, first you got to get the report. Then we can go through a process and talk a little bit about disputing it. Now, Steve says, do you need to start charging? You need to start charging for these live events. This information is priceless. I appreciate that. Christian says, very good info. Yes, we all need it. And how do scammers get away with it and make millions? Well, that's a really good question. If I knew the answer to that, I mean, this is the problem, though, right? All this information is housed into a place, but I haven't really heard of LexisNexis getting hacked yet, or them having information issues like Experian has. So we'll see. Does LexisNexis report to the CFPB? LexisNexis doesn't report the information anywhere, but the CFPB could get reports from LexisNexis if they wanted to. And Steve says, so a used car dealer who finances my customers can get a LexisNexis on customers to help me find to help me find hard to find repos. Yeah, absolutely. This is how repo people get their information. They get LexisNexis address reports, and they know every address you've ever been associated with. So if I'm hauled up at mom's house, they're going to know exactly where mom lives. So if you've ever seen shows like repo shows, this is where they're getting the data from. It's where all these sources get their data. I just want to stop and say this, guys. This is it. This is it. This is the root of all of it. And that's what I found. I spent years uncovering this. And what I found is this thing right here is the root of all of it. All the information, most of the problems you've ever had with getting things like insurance policies, or problems with law enforcement going up and pulling up your past speeding tickets, it's all from this guy right here. This is it. And the great news is, now that we know this, we can get it, we can clean it up, since most people don't. Like, everybody here knows. Most people don't know how to get this. But now that we know it, we can get it, we can clean it up, and we can create the perception that we want lenders and credit issuers to have about us. So first, you can get your business credit reports at creditsuite.com/monitoring. I already showed you how to get your LexisNexis credit report. You can also schedule a call with us. We give you information on fundability. We can talk through what's involved to help you repair LexisNexis as well. But again, the other thing before I wrap up is if you want to dispute to LexisNexis, simply do so. They actually will give you, when you look at all of this, they actually will give you all of the information about contacting them to dispute the information right here. And once I have the actual report number, which is here at the top of the actual page, once I have that, then I can simply reference the report number, file a dispute to get the things fixed. Now, I can tell you that coming from the mortgage crisis, and those that know my story, I lost everything. I had plenty of legitimate judgments on my credit report. When I went to LexisNexis and said, I even said to them when I disputed, these are correct. They are true. These are not. These must be removed. When LexisNexis sent me the updated report, they deleted every judgment, all of them, even the stuff I clearly told them the judgments were accurate. So they have a tendency to overcorrect and completely dispute information. And it's fairly easy because they don't know this. They don't even know LexisNexis exists. So the LexisNexis doesn't have all these disputes pouring in like the consumer credit reporting agencies because their data isn't consumer facing. You have to find out from some like internal link from a guru like me, which not a lot of people are talking about this. I may be the first one that's ever talked to you about it that you've heard to even know this exists and know it's a process. So the result is when you dispute with them, I find it's fairly easy to be able to clean it up. So first, get the report. Second, they will give you the address and everything you need right here to dispute and by mail. And that's what I recommend. And I recommend that you basically write up a letter of why you're disputing. I include a page of what's wrong and highlight it. And then any proof you have that what they're reporting is incorrect. A lot of times they'll dispute it without the proof. Other times they may come back to you and say, we need more evidence of what you're saying to be accurate before we'll dispute it. I always go in with whatever proof I can get. And again, they have a tendency to overcorrect. When I just went in and said, I was never affiliated with this company, remove this email, I got no problem with that. So again, a lot of the stuff is easy to clean up with no proof. Some of it you may want to supply proof if you have it, but once you get a copy of that report, you're able to then go to them to writing to dispute it. It takes about 30 days to be able to get the report. Typically could take upwards of 60 days and about 30 days to process disputes. With COVID, typically could be up to 60 days. If you got value from this training, make sure you go to creditsuite.com/toolbox. I've got about $400 worth of really cool giveaways that you're going to get right there, like a little gift basket. And all you have to do is share my next live stream. If you share my next live stream, you automatically are able to get like the extra $400. So it's pretty cool, or $400 worth of really cool gift basket of goodies that'll help you build business credit, get financing. And you also can give us a call for a free finance assessment. We'll help do a fundability check, help you fix that to be more fundable. We'll get your business credit reports for free, go over those with you, give you tips and tactics to be able to improve those. And we'll do a finance assessment to tell you all the funding you can get right now. And by the way, talk to our team about working with us. It's cheaper to work with us than build business credit on your own. We've got a finance source now that will give you a credit line. Just because you get started with us, they give you a credit line to even fund your enrollment. And then you pay it off and you can use the credit line. So like you can now get started with us and get a credit line just to get started. Pretty cool. And again, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing behind the scenes. And right now we're building the most phenomenal software and tech I've ever seen that will actually make this easier for you, that will compare all this data lenders are getting against your application data. It will tell you discrepancies. It will score your fundability. It will help you fix those things. Then it will automatically match you against all the loan programs, credit cards that you're able to be able to get approved for. That way you don't go applying for stuff you get denied. We'll use the data lenders use to make the decisions about you and then tell you the stuff you can get. We match it. So there's no more process of guessing and going through step by step to do stuff. We're not even doing it. We're eliminating tiers from our system. And our new solution will just tell you, here's everything you can get. And then as more stuff's added to your business credit reports, and we say, oh, now here's all the stuff you can get. And so it's really, really cool. And this is some of the stuff we're working on here at Credit Suite. And you have a chance to be able to get in now before we roll that kind of stuff out and have a huge price increase, which will happen in the year to come. So give us a call. And if you got value from this, go to creditsuite.com, the top right of our page, and make sure you like our social media channels as well. And Christina says, I got a lot of helpful info. I'm glad that you did. Thank you very much for coming, Christina. It really means a lot. And B. Johnson says, Ty, you're a godsend. Thank you for sharing this information with small business owners. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, your time. I appreciate you guys coming in today. Hopefully you got a lot of info you didn't have before. And Steve says, hey, just had a LexisNexis page pop up on my iPhone screen. I guess they're listening. That's pretty funny. You know that didn't just happen based on nothing else than it just popping up. Wow, you were serious. And thanks for your help. Okay, so thanks everybody very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to give us a call for your free finance assessment. It's worth it. We'll cut years off the process of you being able to access the capital you should be able to get right now. And we'll be able to help you build business credit, access all kinds of financing, and set your business up where you're fundable. Plus, as part of our system, we help you get your LexisNexis credit report. Our team helps you clean it up. And our team also helps you get your check systems credit report with your banking history, and your check systems credit score helps you clean that up, as well as access your Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, Experian commercial credit reports and clean those up. That's all part of our product and service. So make sure you give us a call. We'd love to talk with you more. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great day. Look forward to Norman says great info. Thank you. Great job. Christina, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you on our next training where we talk about more cool ways to get the money you need to start and grow